Fantastic. So also the next session will be about Cassini. We will hear more about these amazing opportunities that Cassini offers. We are really happy to have on stage our speakers and, of course, the moderator of this session. So Reinhard Blasi, Market Downstream and Innovation Manager at the EUSPA. Mohammad Iranmanesh, Managing Director Belgium of ConstellR. Giuseppe Galimberti, CEO of NanoTech. Lucie Liversain, Chief of Staff for Skynopy. Can I ask everyone to take a seat so we can move to the next session?
Good morning, everyone. Actually, this is a kind of a continuation of the session before, so I ask also the presenters to stay close in case there are questions. And meanwhile, we talk about Cassini. I don't want to talk too much actually in this session, but just some words on when I say Cassini, what are we talking about? You see here basically the different components, starting from the EU Space Academy. That means transferring skills to startups. We have hackathons and including mentoring built-in, Cassini challenges, where basically we get solutions developed, again mentoring and also some money involved. We have the business accelerators. That's really where it's a close, intense phase of accompanying the startups in order to accelerate their success, plus some money involved. We do matchmaking. That is referring also to the session before. Like we have investors, we have ideas, they need to get together. We did have a matchmaking yesterday as a side event, for example. And then we do have an investors network where, as you have seen, we are also joining forces with ESA to have one Europe in space in order to help the startup ecosystem. And then, of course, please already note our entrepreneurship days. That's a once in a year event where all the ecosystem, all the Cassini ecosystem gets together. With that, as I said, I don't want to talk too much, but I would rather listen to how was the experience of our co-panelists. It will be a bit of a surprise who will be next, but we will see when the slides are coming up, or if I can move them. Let me see. So it will be NanoTech and Giuseppe. Tell us about your experience.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, there are slides. I don't know if we have to go through the slides, but there are so many. But anyway.
Just tell us your story.
Tell the story. All right. We participated. We are like an Italian deep tech company focused on aerospace and space. We've been incorporated like almost 9 years ago, and we've been dealing with the space since the beginning, despite we started with Formula One. So it was a good start. I mean, now we supply Formula One, but of course, space is the replica of Formula One in the space ecosystem. And a few years ago, we were participated at the first batch of the Cassini Business Accelerator. And I think that it was like a great experience that I can share with you by saying that it gave us the boost in order to understand what's next. The risk, especially for us supplying Formula One, was to remain a niche player. And Cassini brought us to a different level. We taught us to scale, which is not a very easy thing to do in Europe. Actually, probably is the most difficult thing. So it was quite a journey. Mentoring, getting together with other startup was quite important thing.
Giuseppe, what if you say it was boosting your scale up? You mentioned mentoring. So if you would describe also to some audience who's not necessarily familiar what was the main thing that really was helpful for you?
Well, I go into a slides that probably said, so I use here is. I use what someone else said, not me. We were in, oh. You went, let me go back, sorry. Okay. Mario Andretti, a Formula One driver, said once to their mechanics, if everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough. So if you believe that you have to have everything under control, preparing everything, I mean, being top notch, you're losing time. So what, if I can say something, Cassini, I mean, made us understand that probably was time to be bold, to do things despite we were not ready yet in the proper sense, because otherwise you don't start. So if this is probably the things that I learned.
Okay, maybe let's not do it presentations, but let's still see Mohammad. We can still show the title slide though, and then we are curious about your story. Just click further so we see where we are. And I come back to all of your ideas. Mohammad, what is your story?
You ask us to start with the inspiration, and I want to show this one because that's basically the inspiration for the company. Is that plant that you have at home? That's, you know, by the time you notice that it needs water, it's completely wilting. The leaves are turning brown and dying, and that's really what, you know, the founders noticed as well. Is that when it comes to agriculture, by the time, if you're using color images, if you're waiting for the pixels to turn brown, it's too late. And so that was the origin of the story, to start then building a constellation of thermal infrared, trying to measure the land surface temperature and really being able to detect stress and before it's too late, when you can actually do something about it. So that was the idea of the company. May I go through a few more slides just to, as I tell the story, because there is a fun anecdote that I want to share. And so we are now with 2 satellites in space, really focusing on measuring temperature changes very accurately. And these images that you can see are from the 2 satellites that we are in orbit right now. These are satellites size of a dishwasher, so 150 kilograms weight. And what we're really adding is a layer of additional intelligence to the existing data. So in optical, you can see the different features, like what what is exactly the shapes, and identify a helipad, for example. With radar, you can get in different weather conditions, information about the shapes and the position. And thermal here, for example, you can see a power plant. You can see if the power plant is on or off by looking at the temperature of the water that is being discharged in the pond, or see exactly which side is on. So it gives you information about the activity.
When did you start these 2 satellites?
Sorry?
When did these 2 satellites start?
Yeah, so they were actually launched this year. And like many startups...
last year, I guess.
Yeah, 2025.
Yes.
So with the first one in January and then in the summer. But it's a good question because like any startup that starts, you of course start with the in-orbit demonstration. And there's a fun story with ours. So at this time, ConstellR had already been involved with the Cassini, or what was before Cassini, to win the first challenges. And our in-orbit demonstration was actually on the ISS. So you know that when you come with a new technology, you want to go and test it in space. Usually you do it through CubeSats. Ours was sent, through this platform that they have outside of the ISS. And it was a very fun story because you can see then videos of astronauts actually taking your payload, your sensor technology, mounting it on the structure, and then it goes outside. And the anecdote is that actually it didn't connect well to the system that they had inside, and they had to turn the Wi-Fi router on and off. An astronaut had to manually turn it on and off for it to connect, and that's how the in-orbit demonstration ended up working.
So the problems we have down on Earth, they also exist on the ISS. How did you get there? I mean, how did you convince? Whom did you convince to?
So I mean, the good thing is that right now there are a lot of opportunities if you want to do IODs with CubeSat for ISS. So it was NanoRex who was organizing this, and it was through like a call for projects through NASA. and you see like it's the size of three CubeSats, and instead of like taking the risk of the whole platform of the CubeSat to do your technology demonstration, you can do it on the ASS, so it uses the power, and they come from the ISS. And also the other advantage of the ISS test is that you can get it back, so you can get your payload back, which can be in the office, which you can then touch and say, I touched something that was in space, which is pretty cool.
Pretty cool indeed. Before moving to Lucie, also for you the question, how did Cassini help you most on this journey?
I think Cassini is great because it's actually filling a gap. I like to make the comparison with the space industry and football teams. Usually you have the kids leagues, where they need coaching, they need a basic infrastructure, and for that, in Europe we're great. There's a lot of support for early stage startups and R&D projects, and then you have these big professional teams who have everything they need from equipments and amazing fields. What was kind of missing was companies like us, so you get to 30, 40 people, you have stuff in space, and you get to a stage where you're trying to scale up. That was a gap that I think Cassini is feeling quite well, coming to us and explaining, doing the coaching, helping us to go to the next level. All of the events and the matchmaking, the meeting investors and potential customers, they support us very well into the growth strategy and entry to market. So that was very useful because I think it's a gap. It's not the early startups and it's not the primes, but this framework was really helpful for us at that stage.
Thank you. Curiosity, of course, you're mentioning investors, you're mentioning mentors. How much is it helpful also to exchange with co-founders, with other companies, maybe from completely different areas? Is this also a factor that you are kind of a community?
It was. So we were lucky enough to be part of the Cassini accelerator, where you have this batch system, so companies coming together. They do spend a lot of time, in community building. We see each other in person at a big event, and it's very useful to have this informal conversation with people who, might be a bit further than you in their development stage or a bit earlier, and it was very helpful to, because you have met them, face to face, you know them personally, and it was way easier to later share as well your challenges.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Lucie, what is your story? Who is Skynopy, and how did you feel in this community?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, when it comes to space, we often, have in mind, of course, the launcher segment, the satellite segment, but we often, I would say, see less the ground segment. So Skynopy, basically, we have been founded less than 3 years ago by two ex-directors at Loft Orbital that from the satellite operator point of view understood actually that the true bottleneck right now is really the ground, meaning to connect your satellite and communicate with them, I would say at a low latency and at the high data rates. So that's what we are providing. We are providing that I would say in a clever way or an innovative way, meaning that we are not just, bringing CapEx ground stations around the world. Actually, we connect existing ground stations that are underused, for example, that are filled at 30-40%, and we connect them, and we actually make this offer meeting demand, highly demanding demands from Earth observation satellites, basically, but also telecom players. So far, for example, we have been working with Airbus, and we are providing our capability for Airbus Pléiades Neo constellation to actually reduce the latency they encounter with their, I would say, suppliers right now. And we are also partnering with Eutelsat, basically to provide this ground segment that is already existing with OneWeb, 600 stations located in 42 sites. And actually, we connect them with Earth observation satellite players through retrofit and investments on the ground segment of OneWeb.
This sounds quite grown up, if you like. Since when are you in the business?
So less than 3 years, actually. But we have quite a lean team. We are less than 20 people right now, but we are all coming from the space industry, from basically the major players in Europe right now. What we have been successful so far in is just to provide this technology brick of orchestration of all the antennas to make sure actually that you can build a diversified and really a globally, I would say, dense network of stations. It's truly what Earth observation is missing right now, to make sure that you can provide, for example, images in less than 20 minutes, even 5 minutes in the near time by 2028, for example, to different use cases, or of course a lot of different use cases that are needed. Agriculture is one, but basically also environmental monitoring can be a truly interesting use case. And what we see from our point of view is just not only a question of technology, it's also a question of business model, meaning that right now space, and what has been quite interesting in terms of dispersion is that SpaceX, for example, on the launch segment, has been able to disrupt, the launch industry by reducing costs. Same thing over satellites. We are now moving forward into the industrial manufacturing of satellites. What we think that we can bring is really on the ground segment, this new revolution of actually lowering down the cost of connectivity and simplifying also this bottleneck that a lot of satellite operators actually encounter and tell to them, okay, I want to connect my satellites really fast, like in hours or weeks, not months. And we are providing that. And actually, it's really like bringing, for example, the simplicity of the mobile industry, but to the satellites.
Okay, impressive. And for you as well, you are also part of, we like to call it the CASSINI family. So it's not that you once you are in touch and then you go. We try to follow our family members. So how did you enter the family of CASSINI, and what was the most helpful for you on your journey?
Yeah, so actually we joined the batch 5, so we just got out of CASSINI program, so it's really quite new for us. So I was really amazed by this program in terms of networking, mentoring, which is really, really interesting because obviously when you do business you need to, of course, build a network. CASSINI is, of course, helping a lot in that. And also, I need to mention that mentoring is really, really important. When you have this opportunity to define what are your, I would say, main goals and main milestones that you need to achieve in terms of scaling, CASSINI team is really open to that and can find really the best mentors that can actually help you to achieve that. So yeah, basically it was super helpful in terms of business, but not only that, operations, scaling. I met really great mentors that are still connected with, and yeah, that's really, really important for us.
Thank you. So similar, so it seems to be a pattern. We do have some minutes left, and by the way, also if there's questions from the audience, please just raise your hand. I would like, maybe we have interested companies who heard about CASSINI, but maybe they are thinking about, they have their doubts, they have their questions. So if, based on your experience, if you had an advice for somebody not quite knowing what to expect from CASSINI, where to go, what to do, what would be your advice? And for all three of you, you decide who wants to chip in, who wants to start.
I go first again. Well, again, I go back to my original point. It's if they are uncertain to participate to events like this, the best it's to look at those that made it through. So it's important that you do things like this where we can promote what has been done and what we got back. So it's like an example. So probably the best way for those that have doubt to participate is to speak with those that made it through. So probably that's the only thing that I can think of.
Okay, so you're available for the rest of the day as well to get approached.
Okay, yes.
Good. How about Mohammad? Maybe what would you advise to somebody who is not?
Yeah, I think something that I heard often is some startups are in a situation where they say, "Oh, but we already have like connection with the EUSPA or the European Commission, so we already where the tenders are, we know who to talk to, and maybe we don't need to spend more time on it." But I want to tell that no, it's still worth it because you really enter an ecosystem, a series of activities and all kind of like support even outside of this program, and also it's very good to be identified as part of this family. So even if you think that you have enough contact and connection with with the different commission and the European Commission, it's still interesting, I think, to be part of this specific program.
Lucie.
Yeah, and I will insist on networking. I mean, Cassini is actually a network that explodes year after year. So, I mean, the most interesting thing is really to connect with people. For example, I mean, in our batch and former batches, we have been able to connect with actually, startups that are becoming customers for us. So it's quite important. We're here for that, of course. And the second remark is really on the mentoring. Don't hesitate to explain what are, I would say, in full transparency, your key goals, your key milestones, or key blockers, maybe, to make sure that your Cassini mentor can really help you and provide you the really best fitted, I would say, advice. In my case, it was super interesting to understand how deeply we could go in this, I would say, understanding of what is needed to scale. In terms of operation, it's not only business, it's also how you can, scale as a startup. It's quite important to make sure that we put in place all the right elements.
Thanks. You know what is interesting? People always talk about money. So in Cassini, there is also some money involved. Without understanding me wrong, but I'm quite happy that you don't mention the money as the most important thing, because indeed what we believe as well is there's so much more that can be done. We have a few minutes left. Maybe in very brief words, is there anything else that you would wish for? How can we make your lives even easier? Very brief. We have 3 minutes, maybe 1 minute each. And I'm sure we are not perfect, so don't be shy.
What I think that's important is to improve the interaction with investors. So the events that involves the pitching, these kind of things might be like a little bit better, which is a common theme anywhere. Pitching most of the time are not very useful. So doing something, I have some idea, but there's not much time.
Okay, point taken. It's important for us to hear that as well.
So for me, as I said, they should keep focusing on this area where it's like between the early stage and when you are mid cap. So this growth stage, and one of them is maybe not problems not coming from Cassini, but it's true that the need is also going to be on the investment side and finding for us investors in Europe who are able to lead these growth stages, and maybe there can be improve the connections and the network of investors that are part of the Cassini community. They should also join more.
Okay, point taken. And I think this also links to the session we had just seen before, where we will have a new dynamic coming up. Lucie.
So I think it already exists, and as you know, I'm just out of the last batch. I didn't, I would say, experience that, but I think the alumni Cassini is quite important. The fact that we have been a team of early stage companies that are quite close to each other, I would say, when you start. Let's keep that, I would say, along the journey of growth, to make sure that when we are building up, we can still have these strong connections, and maybe also with the open, I would say, community. But maybe I will explain that in a few months.
Okay, also point taken. So you wish to remain part of the Cassini family. We too, by the way, and we want to accompany you further. So thank you very much. I think we have reached the end of our session. If there are questions from anyone in the audience, please just approach us. We will be still here. And most and foremost, thanks to Mohammad, Lucie, Giuseppe for sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much.